watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, so today we need to talk about what's happening with Mega Evolution and their single prices, because, well, it depends where you are in the world. If you are in North America, for instance, and Mega Evolution is out, you can walk into shops and buy it. Maybe it's selling out in a lot of places. It's a cool set, and Pokemon cards are quite popular right now. But in theory, you can walk into a shop and buy it. If you're in EMEA regions, we're talking Europe, Middle East, and Africa, like me, sitting here in the UK, well, we're a bit less lucky. But pre-releases have started, so the cards are out there at least a lot more than they were. So the question is, what is happening to prices? Are they crashing like we expected? Well, let's start off with the gold cards. Those ones are a little bit fancy. And what I showed you the other day, I showed you early sales of gold Gardevoir at around about 850. That was a bargain of 700, but generally they were sitting there at 850. And then I showed you that a few days afterwards, they had gone down to about 700-ish. We had a 6, we had a 7, we had a 750, so let's call it about 700. What are we talking about now? About 5. It's only been a few days since I showed you the other sold. It's been about a week, actually, truth be told. It's been about a week since I came and said, hey, maybe don't be buying the singles right now. It's not a great idea. That was about a week ago. And the Gardevoir has gone from about 7 to about 5. As with all of this, you got to remember, these prices are fluctuating, especially for the more expensive cards, and they've not been out that long. So it's not a hard and fast rule. But a week ago, it was about 700. It's now about 500. That is a significant downturn in the space of a week. And a lot of this comes to, it's early. We are in a situation where it's not just early in terms of the sets come out, it's early in terms of these are the first gold cards in the Mega Evolution format, in the Mega Evolution block. We don't know what these are supposed to be selling for. Are they supposed to be $500 cards, $700 cards? Excellent question. Don't know the answer. But right now, they have dropped pretty significantly. Hang on a second, I hear you shout. Wassy, don't be disingenuous, sir. You've only told us about the Gardevoir. What about the Lucario? Well, when I showed you the other day, the early sales were about 800. We got an 8, an 8, and a 745. And then I showed you that they dropped to 650 to 550. Where are they now? Actually sticking at 550 for now. Essentially, the Gardevoir stayed quite high when the Lucario was dropping, and now the Gardevoir has dropped down to match the Lucario, and the Lucario's sitting there like, no, it's cool, mate. Like, I'm happy here at 550. 550 sounds about right. That's where we are right now. Both of these are around the 550, 500 mark. The fact that Lucario is a bit more expensive than Gardevoir is a little bit weird, but it is a much more playable card, at least from the early days, so we'll leave it there for the minute with the gold cards. Gardevoir crashing down quite nicely. Lucario has come down. Seems to have stopped for a minute, but I still think it's going to at least drop down to match the Gardevoir. That's what I think. We'll figure it out a little bit later. There'll be an update in a week or two. I like to give updates. It's fun. But what about the special illustration rares? How about the Gardevoir special illustration there? That sounds like fun, right? Because it is, let's face it, a very beautiful card. So it feels like the kind of thing we should be having a little bit of a chat about. And the other day, I showed you that the early sales were about 500-ish, 490, 550, 500, around the 500 mark. Again, because they're very expensive and it's early, there tends to be a little bit of a range. And then I showed you that it had dropped down to about 400, 425. Well, the good news is it's mostly dropping down. The bad news is there are people trying to ruin it for us. Because if you look at the last three solds, 355, 375, a modest drop, but still a drop. And then someone's paid 490. Who's paid 490 for this card? When I see one random sale that is that egregiously high, that makes me think somebody wasn't paying attention to the listing. Maybe it wouldn't be the first time someone had listed something and sold it a bit too high to try and push the market up. I don't know. I'm not suggesting that's happened here. I'm saying these are explanations that have been the case in the past. I'm not suggesting that's happened here. I am suggesting that the 490 is a massive outlier. Please be wary. But you got to bear in mind, I already showed you the other day that in the first week, they dropped from over 500 to 400. So give it another week and it's dropped down by 40 to 50. Still significant, but not as much as maybe it could have done. Because there's only so much it can drop. Frankly, not to be rude. What about the Lucario special illustration rare then? When I showed you the other day, the super early sales were up at about they were absurd. 876, 650, 700. Absolutely absurd. And then dropped down to 360, 370, 440. Where are we now? Significantly down. With another random exception. Here are the last three sales as I'm recording this video. And we got a 280 and a 290. Both of which make perfect sense. Because if I told you a week ago, when the set wasn't out and pre-releases hadn't started everywhere, a week ago we're sitting here talking about 360, and now it's a week later and we're nearly 100 down but not quite. Cool. That makes perfect sense. Why has someone paid 400 for this? And I know sometimes you'll have multiple eBay listings and one will be a bit more expensive, but it turns out, actually that's just because this one is much better quality. But this much higher? Again, it's an anomaly that, to be blunt, I don't think we should be taking seriously. Now, Lily's determination the other day, we had early sales which were all over the place. An 8, a 6, and a 300. I don't know what's going on with that. But then we had pre-releases in full swing, set about to drop, 250, 220, 275. And we go, all right, that kind of makes a little bit of sense. We can live with this. Where are we now? We're a little bit lower. 175, 165, 200. Yeah, it's coming down quite nicely. And when we're looking at these, you have to bear in mind, I'm showing you two drops here. I'm showing you the initial drop, which we had a chat about the other day when I was telling you not to buy the singles. And then the second drop, essentially the super early sales, the pre-releases are going sales, and then this is the set has just come out sales. And we're seeing drops all the way along. And there might be some people watching this going, yeah, but from last week to this week, they're not huge drops. And sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But you got to also bear in mind that we're looking at two drops together here. That is pretty relevant. Now, the one that I want is the Latias EX Special Illustration Rare. Because it's Akira Igawa artwork. It's phenomenal. It is my personal chase card for the set. And when I showed you the other day, we had early sales of about $400, a shade under in places, but about $400. And then a week later, it had come down to about $300. We had one at 3, one at 265, one at 325. So you average it out, you're sitting there at about 300-ish. That'll do for the time being. So where are we now? Around about 250, shading to the under. So we got 3 sales in a row here, 250, 215, 220. There are still 250s around. People are still paying 250, let's be perfectly clear. But it's not a hard and fast, everyone's paying 250 or any of that rubbish. 250s are around, but generally speaking, we're shading to the under. Still far too rich for my blood. I'm hoping that this comes down quite significantly. But for the time being, I don't know, that'll do. And to be fair, there was one other card we chatted about the other day. It was the Mega Venusaur. It seems a little bit rude that I show you all the others as an update, but not the Mega Venusaur. Well, when I showed you this the other day, we had the early sales, which were coming in at about 400, a 4, a 350, a 450. They average out to exactly 400, if anyone's interested. We then had a week later where we're just under 300, so about a $100 drop. And this one is coming down quite nicely. It's about $200 now. 210, 216, 193. This one is dropping really quite nicely down to about $200. And if you take both the drops together as I've been talking in this video, these are significant drops. You know, we're talking things like the Gold Gardevoir, for instance, which the first sales we saw were 850, but now we're looking at it, and rather than 850, we're looking at like 500. That is a hugely significant drop, ladies and gentlemen. Hugely significant. We're looking at, the Lucario EX Special Illustration Rare, which started off at like call it a $700-ish card, and yet more recently, you're talking about under 300. These are huge drops, and some of them dropped far more in the first than the second. But make no mistake about it, these cards are getting a lot cheaper as we go along, and you need to bear in mind, the set is still not released in EMEA regions. A lot, and I mean a lot more supply is coming, well, next Friday, not this Friday, next Friday. So enjoy it. Chill out. Have some fun. I think the prices are going to keep coming down for a little while. But for now, I want to know what you think about all of this. I want to know what you bought for your pre-release or your sales. I want to know anything you want to tell me. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Gunners! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at Lawasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. And get shout-outs on the channel like the lovely Kanto Royalty, who's been a supporter of ours for a long time now and seems to be a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.